C-. That was the infrastructure grade given to the leader of the free world by the American Society of Civil Engineers. Among other reasons for the grade, they cited that America has a water main break every 2 minutes and that 43% of the nation's roads are in poor condition. I don't mean to be alarmist, but this is a problem that can't be ignored. It's time that America takes a serious look at why our infrastructure is so poor and how we can improve it. Looking to other nations with more up-to-date infrastructure, like France, Switzerland, and Singapore, may help us pinpoint the true problem, and therefore the solution. In France, most of the infrastructure is paid for and organized by the federal government, and as a result, they rank with the 8th best infrastructure globally. The Swiss state government closely oversees and runs almost all infrastructure projects in the country, boasting the 4th best infrastructure. And Singapore lacks subordinate governments entirely because of its size, and ranks with the best infrastructure in the world. Granted that Singapore's size gives it infrastructure advantages, but the pattern holds on a wider scale and it also makes sense. A unified effort by a larger body will often have a more well-distributed impact even when one factors in mismanagement. It can generally be observed that the larger the role the federal government plays in funding infrastructure, the better managed and more cohesive that infrastructure is. And this is where the American federal government comes in. Or, more accurately, doesn't come in. The percentage of the federal budget spent on infrastructure has been steadily declining for the past 40 years. And the cold truth is that people don't care about infrastructure until something goes wrong.
In those multimodal ways, how much is currently being spent on our infrastructure, on our transportation infrastructure, without adding any more money to it?
Well, I think the important point here is not enough.
From coast to coast, our transportation infrastructure is showing signs of distress. Assuring states that the federal government will continue to be a reliable partner in funding and delivering a safe and efficient national surface transportation network should be a top priority.
Now, the good news is that with public pressure mounting, this issue is finally getting pushed to the forefront of the national conversation. Which is why on November 15th, 2021, President Biden approved a historic bill that would allocate $1.2 trillion towards rebuilding and repairing infrastructure over the next 5 years. Now, if the voting results in Congress weren't enough evidence of bipartisan support, presidents on both sides of the aisle have been acknowledging the importance of infrastructure for decades.
The bridges and highways we fail to repair today will have to be rebuilt tomorrow, at many times the cost.
A new plan for rebuilding and modernizing America's roads and rails and runways for the long term.
As we rebuild our industries, it is also time to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure.
We're going to put hardworking Americans on the job to bring back our infrastructure and bring it up to speed.
There is nothing partisan about fixing our roads and our bridges and tunnels. There's nothing partisan about making sure that we have the resources we need for our economy to run and for people to get to work every day.
So if the bill is so clearly beneficial, then why was there substantial resistance in passing it through Congress? The elephant in the room is the national debt.
There's no such thing as a free lunch, and you've got to make sure that you're paying for your bills at the end of it. And so this is a huge challenge that we're going to continue to fight, as long as both Republicans and Democrats agree on only one thing, which is continuing to spend more than their means.
Although from before the pandemic, those words ring just as true today. Many economists are already worried that the inflation from recent government stimulus packages is damaging the economy. They fear that the additional $3 trillion necessary for the closely related Build Back Better and infrastructure bills could skyrocket the national debt further, taking inflation with it. And there is a credible concern there. High enough inflation has historically crashed economies. But we have to keep perspective at the same time. America's inflation rate is far from critical, and we can also no longer afford to keep infrastructure on the back burner. Balancing the budget is important, but refusing to repair the framework that supplies it is equally self-destructive. A 2014 University of Maryland study found that infrastructure investments added as much as $3 to the country's GDP for every $1 spent, with an even bigger effect during recessions. The economic boost is expected to curb the effects of the pandemic recession, which could actually reduce the national debt in the long run. History has shown us that you can't build a strong country on a crumbling economy, and you can't build a strong economy on a crumbling infrastructure. This bill is a long-term investment in the future of our nation. The ASCE estimated in 2017 that the U.S. had an unfunded infrastructure gap of $2 trillion. This means that investing in infrastructure will continue to be economically worthwhile for the next $2 trillion. Additionally, we know this approach works. It's been done before. Back in 1956, Dwight D. Eisenhower funded the creation of the National Highway System, an investment many economists believe paved the way for the strong domestic market of the 1960s. The federal government has a duty to the citizens of this country to maintain quality infrastructure. And I, for one, am happy to see that not only is the federal government taking this duty seriously, but that people on both sides of the aisle are coming together to safeguard the future of our country. And as always, thanks for watching.